Got
Hi,
it.
this is What's Next with Sarah Remke, and I'm sitting here today with Niki Sims, who I've known, I'm going to say 18 years, a long,
Yeah.
a long time. And she's made many changes in her life and is currently living in Costa Rica. So I was curious and wanted to talk to Nikki about the experience of pulling up stakes and moving to a completely different country. We met years ago because you were doing intuitive readings and you walked into my cafe and it created a nice friendship over the years. And
Yes.
now you're doing a new project where you're working with your granddaughter and you're making oracle cards.
Yes.
So Nikki, we'll put her website later, but it's Nikki Sims at oracle.com. So Nikki, how many years ago did you move to Costa Rica?
Let's see, 10 years.
10 years.
2012.
Wow.
Right, right.
But your granddaughter wasn't even born yet.
No,
Okay.
no, she's 9 now. Yeah, and we use the art that we create together for the
Yeah.
oracle cards. Yeah.
And
Yeah, so
go ahead.
they should be published next year sometime.
Nice. Very nice. It's a wonderful way to communicate with and have a relationship with a child. I think it's really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you decided on Costa Rica because your son was there and you knew you had a grandchild coming.
Mhm. Yes, they
Okay.
didn't know it, but I did.
Is that right? Oh, wow.
Yes, unfortunately, my daughter-in-law had had, I think, 5 miscarriages,
Oh,
and they
wow.
wanted another baby, and she wasn't willing to try again, of course.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
said, "Don't worry, the baby will come when I move there." And that was
Wow.
4 years before I moved. I said that. And within 3 months of my being there, she was pregnant, successfully pregnant.
How beautiful is that?
Yeah. And that's I have goosebumps. That's the baby that I work with on the Oracle cards. And we've known each other many, many, many times.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I love it. And, the first time I visited them was in 2016. And
That can't be right because you've been there 10 years
that's right, but I visited before I moved.
in 2006.
Yeah, 2000. Oh, yeah, right, 2006. Right. Thank
We're,
you.
we're time traveling here.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I walked off the airplane and I mean, that's it. I mean, I was in the concourse and I knew this was where I needed to be, irregardless of the family, of anything. You know, the country is spectacular and it is tropical. So
Yeah.
I was not prepared for tropical. I really wasn't. I came here because I'm living on Social Security and it's affordable for me to have a comfortable lifestyle here. Um, but the ground itself is alive,
Yeah.
and the people here are still close to the earth.
Mm.
And I've always lived in the neighborhood of where my son and his family were living. And it's a typical Costa Rican population. All the neighbors are Costa Rican,
Okay.
da da da.
So you're not in like an expat community,
Oh, no, I am not.
but those are
They are here.
yeah.
They are here, and there a lot of expat communities here are in gated communities.
Yeah.
When you move to a third or, moving toward a second world country, there's a lot of have-nots.
Yeah.
And you don't go around with your diamond rings and your gold watches. Nor do you go around with designer clothes unless you're living in that area, shopping in that area. You're just setting yourself up
Sure.
to be robbed. And so there are things you need to be careful of when you even visit here, renting a car. I mean, it's I mean, the country here is spectacularly beautiful, and it's only now being computerized. It's only now that you can go to a doctor and he can call up your file.
Wow.
Yeah, so a lot of people continue with the socialized medicine. Becoming a resident here, you have to go through lots of hoops. And part of that is paying for socialized medical care,
Mhm.
whether you use it or not.
Sure.
And for me, it's a fallback. If I become seriously ill, I'll be taken care of and I won't have to pay a dime for it.
Nice.
I pay a monthly premium
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah.
But when I need a doctor, I go see a private doctor
Yeah.
because it's cheap. You know, it's less than $40 a visit. When I need prescriptions, I just take my empty prescription container and they fill it. When Ticos, that's the name they use for the people that are Costa Ricans, Ticos.
Tico. Nice.
Uh-huh.
Got a good rhythm, Tico.
Yeah. And when they need advice, they go to the pharmacy and they talk to the pharmacist.
That's what they do in France. It's so interesting.
Really?
It probably
Yeah.
solves so many problems.
Yeah. It does. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, I don't go to a doctor unless the pharmacist tells me I need to go to a doctor, you know.
Yeah.
And it's very rare. It's very rare that I have to go see somebody. And it's, you know.
So are all these people speaking English, or you're speaking Spanish, or both?
I'm speaking Spanglish.
Okay.
I can get by. I
Yeah.
can get by. And I have a translator on my cell phone, which I use for emergencies.
Right.
But any expat from anywhere that's here that attempts to speak Spanish is held in higher regard.
Sure.
You know, if you attempt to live as the country people live, there's more respect there.
Of course.
Yeah. And
It's always a strange thing when people, I mean, you had a deep connection, obviously. Your son was
yes.
there. You knew you knew you're going to have a grandchild. But when
Mhm.
people just sort of pick up and move to another country without any sort of connection, and then they stay within that expat community, I always find that a little bit unusual.
Well, but sometimes those people are afraid of going outside
Yeah.
of that defined community. And those are the kinds of people that stick out.
Sure.
You know, a smile goes a long way. The people here are happy people. They are happy people. They are workers. You know, they have high schools where the last 3 months of their high school is an internship in the area that they have chosen to specialize in.
Right.
I think that happens in the US too. I'm not sure about that, but for me, it's new. I've never seen it before. And they might very well get the offer of a job after that, depending on, you know, everything. So kids really choose an avenue by the time they're sophomores in high school.
Wow.
And they are placed in particular high schools. They call them colegios here. And universidad is the university, the colleges that we would say in the United States. So it's very specialized. And to me, that's an incredible benefit. Most schools are free, but there are a lot of private schools here. And all the private schools teach English. And the bus system here is incredible. The transportation system is incredible. You know, I come from Portland, Oregon, which was one of the best places in the United States for bus transportation.
Okay.
Public transportation. And coming here, it's like, Yeah, they're late sometimes, but most of the time your connections are right on time. It's easy, it's cheap.
Yeah, yeah. So, did your son speak Spanish?
When he got here, yes, because he came here, I think it was 10 years before I got here,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was just out of college and he had taken Spanish through high
Sure.
school and university.
Yeah.
So he had some basis
Hmm.
and then fell in love with Tika, a woman,
Right.
a college, university. But anyway, yes. So she learned some English and he learned Spanish and he's fluent.
Yeah. So your granddaughter is being raised bilingual.
Yes,
Yes. It's
absolutely.
such an incredible benefit. You know, my
Mhm.
son was raised bilingual with French, and when they're young, it's interesting to watch how I remember I would say, "Well, can you translate this for me?" And he couldn't. But as he gets older and you get the different language skills, and now he could just flip back and forth so smoothly and easily, and it's so good for their brains and for their whole
Yes.
creativity and empathy of other people. It's just such an amazing thing to watch that happen
Yeah.
for a person.
It
Yeah.
really does change the brain. It
Yes.
really does change the brain. And as you say the word empathy,
Yeah.
clang, 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 that's it.
Yeah.
And I think the other language really has something to do with that.
Yeah, interesting. And I
Yeah.
know my son now is trying to learn Japanese, and he's talking about how hard it is. I said, you're so lucky because when you're two, you're learning everything, and
Mhm.
so it's just easy. And I wish that as a culture we did that more for each other.
Mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. European countries, of course, do it as a matter of, yeah.
Well,
It's just,
even Latin countries. I mean, you think of all the people who are over here. The young kids who are translating for their parents and back and forth, and yeah, yeah,
yes, yeah,
nice.
exactly.
So, are you a resident there?
I am a conditional resident. After you've been here for 2 years, you can apply for there are many kinds of residency here.
Yes.
And you have to begin with, if you decide not to, if you're just somebody who's visiting, just a visitor, and you don't want to go through that route, you have to leave the country every 90 days.
I kind of remember when you were doing that at the beginning.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And every 90 days, you have to leave the country. And as you leave the country, you're stamped out on your visa. And then when you return to come in, you have to have a means of leaving Costa Rica to get a stamp to return. A lot of people will, the reason for that is because of money laundering and drugs, because we are a country where everything goes through it, around it, over it, under it, everything. And so there are many safeguards put in place about that. So moving between, Panama on one side of the country and Nicaragua on the other, there are dogs sniffing everything. There are cops everywhere. Anyway, every 90 days I left on like something like a Greyhound bus,
Mhm.
and went to another country, either Panama or Nicaragua, for 3 or 4 days, depending upon,
Yeah.
so that's, every 3 months you're spending $400 to $500 to do that.
And maybe go to a place that you don't
Plus,
necessarily want to
getting,
go.
I always needed the bus for my next trip. So that wasn't a problem. But a
Yeah.
lot of people did do airfare and then canceled the trip after they got back in the country.
Oh, I
But
see.
it's a long trip,
Yeah.
and we're talking, 6 or 7 hours to
Yeah.
go from where I live, which is up in the hills, and not at all a city, a town, a village, to go an hour, hour and a half to the main city, San Jose, and then take a 6-hour trip to the next place.
That's quite a commitment. Yeah.
It is a commitment, but it's, for me, I
Yeah.
like moving around.
Yeah.
I'm a risk taker and I love to do it independently. And so for me, it was a blast. I very much enjoyed it.
Nice.
But when I decided to stop doing that, there are ways of getting that provisional citizenship, which lasts for a total of 4 years. And then at the end of those 4 years, you have to decide if you're going to become a resident.
Okay.
The resident can then work in the country.
Okay.
And those rules are in Costa Rica. You never know really what's the truth for rules because they change all the time. It's so a lot of people, what they decide to do the provisional to begin with, and then the final citizenship, hire an attorney to do it.
Okay.
Which is expensive. We're talking $3,000 to $5,000 to do that. Now, I did it on my own based on information I heard from other people on Facebook. And I met one person who does it all, that helps other people. I met her once. She helped me figure things out. But at the end of it, I had to have my son come with me, because when you go through that process by yourself, even if you send an attorney, the attorney has to stand in line until 7:30 when they open the gates. Now, usually you're there at 6 or 6:30 to get in line, to go wait for 7:30 to get in another line for windows that don't open until 9.
Wow. So there's a lot of people trying to do that.
A lot of people, a lot of babies that need, a lot of, and there are other reasons why people would go to an immigration authority, a migratory agents. And then right down the road, there's an entirely other place for asylum seekers.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, and then you get in to the place where you're going to talk to somebody to give them your birth certificate, your FBI, check, your, your insurance. You've paid the insurance. I mean, on and on and on.
Yeah.
And there's a big list of things that you have to take. And I probably went back 4 times to do that.
Yeah.
And they don't like it if you don't speak Spanish. And I went and I didn't speak Spanish. So I don't know how much was thrown in my face about that. And this isn't just immigration. This is throughout the whole country. So you really do need, unless you're going to a touristy area, you need to have a working vocabulary. That means, where is, how much is, not that much, but, enough, or that translator on your phone. It makes it easy. All places that are tourist places have English.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about that. If you're going to do the tourist thing, no problem.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was took me over a year to do that.
Right. And so you live in a small village? You don't live in a city?
I do not live in a city. I live, oh gosh, what would I say? The place, my neighbors in this, I would call it a village. There are 2 corner grocery stores. There's an outlet for the main coffee company here, Cafe Brit. And that's about it.
Wow.
There's a school and a community center.
Mhm.
and a church. There's always a church, and the churches all face west.
Yeah.
And there's always a big park in front of it. So, they have bazaars and, stuff like that. But, I'm not going to say there's more than 2,000 people in this location here. I take the bus to the next town. I would call this a village. I would go to a town, and there's probably 50,000 people there.
Yeah, that's significant. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 or 5 supermercados, grocery stores, a couple of shoe stores, little things like that.
Doctors.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that the people in the area of 2000, do you feel accepted there by these people, or?
I do. They know who I am, and I'm accepted because I'm part of a family group.
Okay. And would it be different, do you think, if you weren't?
I think that if I weren't, I'd have to have more Spanish, and I'd have to interact more.
Mm-hmm.
I live a very small existence.
Life.
Yeah, I am kind of a hermit, but my community consists of the bus drivers, the taxi drivers, the people that I say hello to, the people in the stores I shop at. I mean, there are people who would do anything for me, and I have no idea who they are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There is a man that I use. He's a taxi driver. Mm-hmm. And he will take me anywhere at any time at the drop of a hat because I've got money to pay him. So, you need to be careful. I mean,
I think people are used to thinking of Costa Rica as being kind of a pretty middle-class country, but there's still a lot of poverty there.
Oh, there's a lot of poverty here.
Okay.
Yeah, the tourist areas. I mean, if you go to the periphery of the tourist areas, you're going to see how the Costa Rican, even middle class live. Yeah. The average income here for a family of 4, 2 working adults, 2 children, was $700.
Wow.
That's middle class.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's really easy to understand the anger that develops when a lot of expats start moving into a place where they've got a lot of money and sort of no consciousness of the local area.
Right.
And so
or empathy for the local area.
Yeah, that's
it is a problem.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, my son was driving, there's a Central Valley in Costa Rica, and that's where the most of the municipalities, the dense population is. And there are at least 2 mountain ranges here. And the Central Valley, of course, is in the middle, where the dense, so anyway, he was on the other side of the valley. Let's say he was on the south side of the valley. We live on the north side of the valley. He got into a very gentle rear ender situation. People ran to his car and said, "Is Lorelei okay?" They knew who he was.
Yeah.
They knew who she was.
Yeah.
Because they're cousins who know cousins who are, everybody is attached here.
Yeah.
You just say the family name, everybody knows everybody.
It's pluses and minuses, or?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Like anywhere, you can find a soap opera. Yeah. I mean, in the family, it's life. It's life. But it's good, and as far as, the cost of living, I live in a 300 square foot, 2-room house that was built for me in my son's backyard.
Okay.
So there are 4 living areas in 2 rooms. Now that would normally rent about $300, $200 to $300. It doesn't include anything.
Yeah.
Then you would pay for your phone, for your electricity, for your internet, for your, probably not water. Usually they include the water.
Hmm.
Um, but, it depends on who who you get hooked up with,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Yeah.
so you can find places here that
Mm.
are high rises that are, luxury, for 2,000
Yeah.
for a one bedroom. I don't live my life that way.
Right.
So, I live close to the ground and the people. And, that's what, and, I'm in the backyard and, and I am surrounded by horses. I mean, literally 3 feet away from me on the other side of the fence there's 5 horses and I think um, six cows that come by regularly every
Mm.
day. The dogs go nuts, but they're dogs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
but
have you ever lived that kind of a rural life before in your life?
no,
So that really is a change. Yeah.
it's a big change for me, and I love it.
Nice.
And I'm surrounded by fruit trees.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and you're saying rural, but even in the places where there's a lot more people, you have houses that are immediately they share a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all have dogs because the police situation here is not what you would expect. The police will respond to murders, firearms. But, these cops are getting paid $700 a month. I mean, to risk their life. There's razor wire on top of every wall.
Mm.
And, a locked gate to get into the property, another locked gate to get through to your part of the property.
Mm.
That's why there's dogs everywhere.
Sure.
They use dogs as security. But, you get into the gated communities, the places that are high end, a lot of money, you don't have that issue. And they're everywhere as well.
Yeah.
It's it's a beautiful country. I mean, geographically, it's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
It is.
So what are some of the what were some of the hardest things that you've encountered since you've been there? I mean, within yourself, like
within myself.
I mean, you made that big move. You're
Mhm,
in a completely different environment that you ever did before.
mhm.
You don't,
Isolation.
you're not fluent in the language.
No,
You can get by. Is
right.
that what has that been for you?
It was really, really hard. And I think that enforced isolation has only encouraged my hermithood.
Uh-huh.
Um, because I have to be careful,
Mm-hmm.
who I hang out with,
Mm-hmm.
because I am a woman on my own, and they cannot believe that a woman would move here and be independent.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
that isn't done. It is not done because families stay together until, the boy or the girl gets married. And usually what happens is they move in with one of the parents, and there are
Sure.
3 or 4 generations, and you never have to buy a house. It just goes down in the family. It gets upgraded,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. There's a lot of single men who get, divorced, who choose to live in a place like where I'm living,
Mm-hmm.
uh, for expediency. And they don't want to go back to their mom's house because they want to be able to be playing, you know. But, even my sons started out, they moved away
Mm-hmm.
into a house that they bought. subsequently moved back to the family campo, the family.
So is this your daughter-in-law's multi-generation?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Did she
And
grow up there?
it was a coffee farm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they cleared the coffee farm and built a house that's probably 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms for $75,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they didn't have to buy the property. They
Nice.
didn't have to buy the land, you know.
Yeah.
It's anyway, here I am. I've been here 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm now ready to become social.
Interesting.
It really is.
And when you did become isolated and kind of turn inward, were there things happening within you? Like, did that sort of increase your intuition? Did that increase your spiritual life? Did that?
It did. It did. It really, I came here with a shamanic practice. I was trained in the shamanic
I don't think I knew that about you. That's interesting.
practice. Yes. I did go to classes.
Yeah.
And I did, I followed the precepts and everything through a friend of mine that I knew in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And she allowed me to kind of ride in her coattails, because after class, she would tell me everything that happened, and then I would practice everything that she said.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it did. That's when I really got into utilizing the shamanic practice in journeying, in honing that ability to connect to another dimension. And
did you just do that on your own? You would do a ceremony and travel and wow,
yes.
Good for you.
And also, it was really interesting how my intuition about people really flourished, because I had to.
Yes.
I did move into a house in a little community. An English, a U.S. woman owned it and rented out several houses there. And she had a farm. And so, I walked everywhere. I'm a walker. I love to walk.
Yeah.
So I walked everywhere. So people got to see me in the neighborhood coming and going. And there was a level of acceptance, because I didn't try to do or be or, infringe on anyone.
Yeah.
So they got to know who I am. And then, my shopping, I've been shopping in the same town for 10 years. So everybody knows who I am now.
Did you encounter, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, the learning about connecting with not only the land, but insects, flowers, the crops, that was so encompassing. Yeah. I mean, I was never alone. I'm not alone. And I never felt alone. Yeah. And, but during these 10 years, because the world is alive here, the world is alive here. And, communing with the entities that control different kinds of life has been a spectacular experience. When I first moved into this particular house that my kids, they built for me, I paid for it, but they built it for me to stay.
Yeah.
There were snakes that came in, many scorpions, tarantulas, all kinds of spiders.
You knew.
That was it's amazing how courageous I became
Mm.
because I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I had to survive it.
Yeah.
It's a tropical place. But in the course of the years that I have lived in this house, I have come to agreements
Mm.
with boundaries. And it is rare now to have anything come into my house.
Oh, wow. So you've been communicating with the snakes and the,
Yes. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And not that I have to. I did to begin with. I had to respectfully request
Mm.
because it's their country.
Yeah.
It's their, I moved into their,
Yeah.
it's the cowboys and the Indians,
Yeah.
I'm a cowboy.
Yeah.
I took over their territory
Mm.
and I have to respect them in order to live with them.
Mm.
And it's an interesting experience. It's interesting. I still have problems with leafcutter ants.
Oh.
In one night, I mean, the what used to be wild country immediately on the other side of that fence has been completely cut down and cleared for developers.
Oh.
I don't know what they're going to do with that. The horses and the cows still graze there,
Yeah.
but eventually it's going to be built on. And we'll see what happens. But the only problem I have now is with leafcutter ants. And they have moved from their property that has just been completely razed next door to me. They're living under my house. They're living immediately adjacent to the side of my house. And it's a struggle for me. It's a struggle because in one night, they can de-leaf an entire, 20-year-old tree.
Does it
We're
kill
not,
it?
they don't kill it. They
Okay.
take the leaves. And then the next time it leaves out, they come back
Oh,
and de-leaf it. And that's their life, So I have to protect my area, and I do have to put stuff out there so that they don't turn it into, I mean,
well,
it's a
because
city.
that's your
It's a city.
shade, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um,
So that's the only thing that hurts right now.
all the things you never thought you'd be learning.
Have to deal with. Yes, yes, but it's just, I mean, you say, I've got problems with the ants, and it's like everybody laughs
Mhm.
because everybody deals with ants.
Yeah.
Everybody deals with mold here too. You've got the rainy season really never goes away.
Yeah.
And the rainy season is when it is at its most spectacular here.
In what way?
Everything flowers, everything
Oh, wow.
is
Yeah.
myriad colors of green. And yeah, but that's another thing, to get used to. I have asthma, it's not a pretty picture. So I've had to deal with talking to the mildew too, and it's very interesting how that works out. You live together,
Mhm.
and you just have to live with it. So
That's
there's that adjustment. Yeah,
I love
I
that
am.
that you talk together and figure out how to live
Yes,
together.
you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. And
yeah.
then in the rainy season, the roads get all muddy and wash
Oh,
up. Yeah.
yes. We just had a horrible, horrible accident here because there, this place it's mountains. It's mountains. And you either live on the mountain or you live at the bottom of the mountain. And there are landslides. And we this year have, from January, have averaged at least 1 inch of rain a day, at least. Now, there are days when we get 4 inches. And the Caribbean is Hurricane Alley.
Yeah.
So we've got the Caribbean on one side of the country and the Pacific on the other. And sometimes those hurricanes will go over the country. Just hop from the Caribbean to the Pacific and, go up on the outside of the Baja. So, there's that to consider too, yes. And even in the times when it's not so bad, it floods.
Yeah.
I have a friend that lives on the beach, and climate change is an absolute evidence there.
Lives on the beach in a house or in a hut?
In a house, in a neighborhood. And she lives in an apartment in a multiplex.
Yep.
But she was on the ground floor, and she moved upstairs because her place kept getting flooded this year. So it's happening. It's definitely happening. I think it's happening all over the world, but definitely here. Wow. And also, the sanitary systems here. I don't want to badmouth the country. It's a beautiful country. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
But wherever you live, you better make sure you've got water and electricity in place. And when a whole bunch of developers decide that they're going to, make a place comparable to the U.S. in order to sell property, they're going to take up the water table and the sanitary. It's.
Yeah.
I don't go swimming here. I don't go in the ocean.
Oh,
There are protected areas where it's safe, but.
And do you think that's? I'm sorry, something came up on my screen. I'm trying to clear it off here. Do you think the ocean's clean though? Right? I mean,
there are places here where what do you call septic systems?
Yes.
And the septics get overrun, and then they run into the water tables.
Oh boy.
And I boil my water.
Yeah.
Can
you drink water? Can you drink water out of the tap? No, you can't. Okay.
I tried to for several years, and I kept getting real issues, gastro.
Even people who live there, like for instance, could your granddaughter drink water out of the tap?
She does.
She does.
They're used to it.
Fine. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, they're fine. I had issues in that area before I moved here, and it just so.
I think that's always a problem when people, especially Americans, move to somewhere and expect it to be just like what they had.
That's the issue, these expat communities.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot to do here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to slow down.
Yeah.
There's one place for opera and orchestras.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's just not a lot to do here.
Yeah.
You're not going to find an English library, unless you're going to. For me, that was part of my social. Mm-hmm. When I lived in the U.S., I got to go to the library once a week, and get enough reading material for a week. I read a lot.
So what do you do for books now?
Kindle.
Okay. So you don't have to get paper books. Yeah.
No. And you don't have paper books because of the what do you call it? The
humidity? No.
Well, the humidity, yeah. I mean, the books just grow and they rot because of the humidity. So you've got mold everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of changes for you. That's quite an adjustment. And even if most of it's really nice, that's really a lot of.
It is. Yeah. And the reason I feel successful being here is because I am willing to be quiet. I am willing to have a lifestyle that is very slow.
Yeah.
I do my shopping once a week. You know, I just,
Yeah.
I'm a homebody
It works for you.
and
Yeah.
it works for me. If I were somebody that needed projects all the time, that needed people all the time, it would be difficult. However, I will say I am a member of the professional women's group here, and there are groups here. There are wine and dines. There are, card games. What do you call that B word?
Right.
Anyway, yeah, they have, there are places to get together with other people, you
Mhm.
know, going out to dinner, cooking. There's
Yeah.
cooking clubs. There's all of that, and it is primarily in the more developed areas
Okay.
of the country. So if I were to get involved, and I have chosen that one group because they meet once a month,
Mhm.
and I take, an Uber, or I take 3 buses to
Sure.
get down to the area.
Yeah.
It's a major thing for me because
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of extra money to
Mhm.
be spending on things like that. But it's there, but there's not a lot of it,
Yeah.
you know.
And
So
it's
you have to
good
be
to have
willing.
one or two things like that you do. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I
Connected.
choose what I want to do, and
Yeah.
I've made friends through that group,
Right.
and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm totally isolated, but I just don't go out a lot.
Right.
Um, yeah, yeah.
Well, it's
It's
curious because a lot of people are retiring now in the US anyway, thinking about
Mhm.
retiring. They are retiring. There's a lot of talk about, make your money go further, move somewhere else. But I do think the difference for you is you had that connection of your son and your
I
grandchild.
did. I did.
And
And it's possible to create those connections anywhere through Facebook.
yeah,
There are Facebook groups everywhere. I mean, every city in this country has a Facebook group.
but that was
Every
brand new when you moved there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Facebook isn't that old.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you see yourself being there for the rest of your life? Do you ever
I
think,
do.
yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I have looked at other countries,
Mm,
but I'm part of the family here, and it's a family-oriented culture, and
yeah.
I'm old. I mean, I'm in an older generation.
What did you say?
And
You're 70?
pardon me?
Are you 70, did you say? How old are you?
72. Yeah,
72. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that would take a lot to move and adapt to a whole new place, for sure. For sure.
yeah. And, I'm the kind of person that moves every 3 years. I love moving because I get different reflections, different experiences, different
Right,
neighborhoods, different people to talk to, different,
right.
I like doing that.
Yes,
But now I have to be a little more careful.
yes. So
And
have you even been moving every 3 years there?
yeah, I've moved, let's see, 4 times here.
Okay,
So
so
one,
that's interesting.
two, 3, 4. Yeah, I've moved 4 times. Although I have lived here in this place for almost 6 years.
Okay.
And I don't plan on, leaving this place or
Mm,
Costa Rica
yeah,
unless something extraordinary happens,
sure. Yeah. I,
But I have looked. I
yeah.
have looked. I've looked at Bolivia. That's my next choice
Oh, wow.
because they speak English. They use the U.S. Money.
Oh,
Uh, it's easy. The price of living on your own is extraordinarily less expensive. Costa Rica is on par with the US
okay.
because everything here has to be imported.
Yeah.
So it's got to go, you got to pay for the shipping, you got to pay for the people that bring it in, you got to pay for the transportation. It's expensive to live here
Yeah.
unless you're willing to live a simple lifestyle.
Like the people, yeah.
Yeah, the Costa Rican people here. I mean, the plethora of fruits and vegetables and meat, chicken. Uh, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to live like that, I mean, there isn't a a lot of social opportunity, cultural, let me say that, cultural opportunity here.
So have you been able to meet any, your shamanic stuff? Have you met any sort of indigenous healers or
No, I haven't.
anything like that? Or do you know anything about that there? Or
No.
yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. They have ayahuasca ceremonies here.
Oh, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do that type of thing here. There are healers here.
Is that ayahuasca
Um,
like mushrooms or something? What is that?
It's like that.
Okay.
I think it's the processed bark of a tree.
Okay.
And they have shamans that move through Ecuador and, different countries in the Middle and South America that do sacred ayahuasca ceremonies. So you can get.
And of course, now you've got all these Americans going down there because it's hip, and that's that. Like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. It's that's whatever.
Whatever.
Everywhere.
I love how you said, when you move, you get new reflections.
Yes.
And I think that one of the things when we travel or when we live somewhere else, that is something that it can be really hard, but it can also just be so, it just takes you to your core of who you are.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest change that's happened with me.
Yeah.
The judgmentalness that I never thought I had living in the US, the bigotry I never thought I had.
Wow.
It's, and also, we have this structure, this European way of thinking about how life should be and how people should treat each other. And all of those boundaries that we grew up thinking were necessary aren't here.
Right.
And letting those go and having to peel that onion a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit. That's been an extraordinary adventure.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
Good for you for doing it because as I say, I've been places where people just sort of plop themselves down in a new place and they take no part in that.
Yeah.
And you clearly are digging those riches, and it's not always easy. I know it's not always easy. Just to face ourselves, like you say, with my brother and I are always laughing because whenever somebody says, like I don't see color, I'm not racist. It's just like, if you're saying that, I mean, we all are. We
all do. Even if we're not gonna be negative about it, we still experience.
That is a deep road that we all would benefit from really looking at. And so I appreciate your acknowledging that. Yeah.
Well, and to be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Because I'm the minority here.
Yeah.
And
you're the outsider.
Yes, I am, no matter what. Yeah. But I will say one thing about Costa Rica, they value their elders.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you're going to get a raise from Joe Biden on your Social Security. I hope it goes further down there than it's going to go here. But, yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd want to add to any of this, or?
As difficult as doing it individually is, like you're saying, the value of it in understanding who you are.
Yes.
Really, who and how you accommodate and fit in, and the level of acceptance that I've learned from doing this has been extraordinary. And I fought it for 3 years. I fought it. I thought, you blah, 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 how dare you that way, right? Yeah. And now I'm on the other opposite end thinking, I wonder why they think that way.
Yeah.
I didn't have that when I came here.
Interesting.
I've learned a lot about myself, about humanity, really.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Well, we've been talking for quite a while, so we should probably wrap it up. But
thank you.
So people can contact you if they're interested on your Niki Niki Sims SIMMS at
No, just one M. Niki Sims Oracle.com.
.com.
All one word.
And
Yeah.
you don't do reading so much anymore, but maybe sometimes, or
Yeah, it's you know, all I do is the shamanic part of it now. I used to have it quite structured, but now I just journey to my guides and watch a movie.
there you
And
go.
you know, they give me answers people need to hear. So
That's
yeah.
great. Well, much
Yeah.
love to you, Niki, and thank you for sitting
Thank you,
down with
Sara.
me. I really appreciate it. And I'll
Thank
see
you.
you
It was a
around.
blast. The
All
time
right.
went by. Thank
I know.
you.
That's a
Thank
part of
you.
the problem is if they're too big, you can't upload them. And it's
Yeah.
when somebody's interesting, it's nice to keep going. So thank you.
Okay.
Love you. Okay.
Thank you. Love you too. Take care. Bye-bye.